Hey, we're back and we're saying so because it matters. And y'all, I'm so excited for today. I have my dear friend Levi Bragg with me. Levi does live in a neighboring county, but we met a few years ago. We worked together in the same office building, different units, but we got to know each other a bit then. And he just has a phenomenal testimony to share. And I want to bring to your attention, though, that while he's sharing this testimony, Levi's walking it out. This is in real time. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself, but I will tell you that he has a beautiful wife, beautiful daughter. Both are wonderful and walking this journey with him. So I'm excited for y'all to hear. Now, Levi also at one time was the pastor at a church, but now he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he still speaks or maybe preaches at times as well.
That's
So
correct. Yep.
yes, he'll be very impressed. He's a much better speaker than myself, and if he should start into a sermon, just get your Bibles and let's join in. We'll be right on board with it. So, hey Levi, thanks for being here.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
It's
So
good to be
tell
here.
everybody a little bit about Levi Bragg,
Sure.
please.
So, like you said, name's Levi Bragg. Husband, father, child of God. All those titles are very, very important. Also, I've career-wise, I've had a couple different titles. Most recently, I retired from the Army as a lieutenant colonel with the Western Army National Guard, and so that's kind of been the last from like 2018 till February of this past year. That was kind of the primary professional endeavor. So that's all part of who I am. There's a lot more to it than that, obviously, but that'll suffice for now. No reason to prolong the introduction, I don't think.
And I did, as Levi takes a sip of his coffee, he had asked me before if that's okay. I said, absolutely, because my people know I'm sipping the Pepsi. It could be water, but it's usually Pepsi. So, you grab your drinks, grab a snack if you need to. And we're just so glad you're here. Now, Levi, I'm going to ask a question. Are you still lover of reptiles? Because I
So I
have to
am.
know.
I don't. I currently have one reptile pet. It's a turtle. We've had him
Okay.
since my wife and I lived in our first apartment way back in uh,
Wow.
yeah. So way back in 2004 ish, we got this turtle. He was about that big when we got him.
Yeah.
And now he's a grown man now, and he'll definitely outlive Crystal and I. And my daughter will have to take care of him.
That's wild. I don't think I really don't think I know anyone else that has a turtle that has lived that long. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Impressive. Impressive. So, as Levi had already shared with you, at one point, Levi and I both worked for the state of West Virginia. And at that time, he was in a supervisory role with Child Protective Services. I am going to brag on Levi a little bit. I know that everyone has an opinion about CPS, but I saw Levi lead his unit as well. Very compassionate. His thoughts and his unit's thoughts were what is best for this child. I saw Levi hold babies, rock them, feed them, change them. I saw the unit that he led do a lot of things above and beyond, and that speaks of your leadership. And I believe that comes from being a child of God. I believe that was overflow from you at that time.
Yeah, there's no question, right? And there's oftentimes in career fields, Christians get placed into positions of leadership because they demonstrate Christian values. And the organization may not realize, oh, this is Christian values that we're recognizing, but it happens all the time.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, that's right. So I had to brag on him a little bit, but after he left the department, I think he had some other positions, but he eventually joined the military.
The DHHR in 2010, and I went to work for the probation department for the 28th Judicial Circuit. That's Nicholas County. Nicholas County is its own circuit. And while I was there, my boss was Roger Beveridge, and he was the retired Command Sergeant Major for the state of West Virginia. And he started talking to me about, hey, this military thing is absolutely an option. You can do it. I was 28, 29 at the time. And so I was thinking, nah, that's something young men go do. But sure enough, 29, when I was 29, I went to basic training, joined the Western Army National Guard, went to basic training, came out of basic training and went to officer candidate school. And at about 31, 32, I commissioned as an officer in the Western Army National Guard. And I served as an officer from that time until February this year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And he didn't just serve, like Levi enjoyed this. I mean, you really enjoyed that career. Is that correct?
That is, the military gets a lot right. Not only do they put people in positions of leadership, but they train them. It's probably some of the premier leadership training you can get just about anywhere. And the benefits are tremendous. In my current, struggles medically, I would be in a much different place if not for the insurance and medical coverage benefits that the Army provides. So it was all God's providence. He put me where I needed to be provided for at this point in my life. But yeah, it was a great career. One of the biggest privileges of my life professionally was the ability to lead during a deployment. We deployed in 2019. I had about 144 soldiers at the peak of the deployment. We were in 8 bases across 3 countries. And I got to be company commander of that unit and serve with some excellent soldiers and make some memories along the way and make some impactful. We made some impact in the theater too. We definitely did our job in a combat zone, but we were engineers. We did construction work. And so we did our job in a combat zone, but we weren't trigger pullers. We were construction. So definitely one of the greatest professional privileges in my life was that opportunity.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for your service. And anyone listening, of course, we
My
honor all
pleasure.
of the military men and women. We thank you very much for your dedication. So while Levi was in the service, it's my understanding that he had some symptoms, some medical issues going on within his body that triggered something was not quite right. So I'm going to let him take it from here and share and explain what journey he's on.
Yeah, thanks. What I'll do is I'll kind of start back when I first noticed symptoms and work forward till now. But if you have questions or whatever, just pop in. It's fine. So during that deployment, when it was kind of like the peak of my career as far as assignments go, I started having problems passing the PT test. The military has strict physical fitness standards, and that was not me. That was not something that's typical to me. I'm usually in very good shape. And so, like most problems in life, I decided that hard work was the solution. And so I began running more. The runs specifically was what was causing me problems during deployment. And so I began to run more, and I was running like 21 miles a week. My run times were still not getting faster. And so I knew something was wrong, but the deployment was really the wrong time to address it. I was working 18, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's not really time when you're in that position to try to figure out exactly what's going on with yourself. You got too many other people to take care of. And so when I got back, I immediately scheduled an appointment with my doctor to try to figure out what was going on. And at the time, not only did I have some weakness, but I had some pain, specifically in my left hip, left leg. And so they kind of started chasing the pain, what's causing the pain. So so that would have been fall of 19. I first had my first symptoms of ALS. That was during deployment. We came back January of 2020 from deployment, and by March of 2020, I'm having my first doctor's appointment. And so
About how old are you, Levi, at this time?
Gosh, so I would have been about 37 during deployment, 38 once I got back. Yeah. It's very young for onset of ALS symptoms, but there are different versions of ALS. Some of them are even earlier onset than that, and I know at least a few people who personally who have onset earlier than me. But my symptom onset would have been about 37. When I got back from deployment, I was 38. And so we began to try to figure out what was wrong. And I've got some pain. They do some physical therapy. I do physical therapy, no real improvement, a little bit here and there, but nothing major. But through physical therapy, we figured out some more about my pain, right? It's hard to describe pain. It just hurts. But we were able to figure out situations where it did hurt and didn't hurt. And all that led to a diagnosis of a labrum tear in my left hip in fall of 21. And so for the next year or over a year, it was probably a year and a half total, we were chasing this labrum tear. That included surgery to fix 2 tears and 2 bone spurs all in the left hip, somewhere around February or March of 22. And then a year of PT and doctor's checkups after that. And still, by the point I'm a year post-op, I'm worse than I was pre-op as far as limps and weakness and that kind of stuff. Now, the hip socket moves smoother and I'm not having the pain I was having, but as far as weakness and limping and all that stuff, it was worse. And so my surgeon was like, I don't think this is a hip issue, because when I move your hip around in the socket, it feels fine. Let me have you see my physiologist. So this was at University of Pennsylvania Medical Center. He calls his physiologist that day. The physiologist comes and sees me, and he's like, I don't really like what I'm seeing. You've got bilateral weakness now. It's not just in your left leg. There's probably something else going on here. Let's get a nerve conduction study. And so
during this time, did you give any thought to ALS? Did you give any thought to anything other than something's up with my hip? I have a hip injury.
Yeah, no. So yes and no. So for the most part, I was worried about the here and now, right? By this point, I have been not physical. I haven't been up to the physical standards of the Army for a good long time, right? From 18 to 22. I passed a modified PT test, but I'm not like where I need to be or where I want to be, especially if I want my career to progress. So a lot of my worry in that point in time was about my career, how I was going to manage. And I wasn't thinking about broader medical problems. But I'll tell you, when I first began to believe something was really up, I was drilling at Camp Dawson, and me and another girl who had the same surgery I had, labrum tear, but she had it on both hips. We went to the gym. Well, at this gym, all the cardio equipment is upstairs. And so we weren't doing, because we're in recovery from surgery, we didn't do the regular workout. We went upstairs to the cardio machines. And I'm walking up the stairs like labored. I'm using the handrail and like trying to get up. And she had both hips done more recently than I had my one hip done. And she's walking up the steps like it's nothing. And so I'm like, this is not good. Like something else is going on. So that was kind of the first inkling I had that maybe this hip surgery wasn't going to fix my physical problems, and we're going to have to figure out some other way to maintain my career, right? So that was like my first, like, oh, this is not good. Something's up. And I don't really remember the time frame of that, but I specifically remember that morning and her walking up the steps and me being like, man, this is not good. I honestly probably was thinking more along the lines of like the hip surgery didn't fix it, right? Like something like that. But once they started talking, I have bilateral weakness, we knew something was up, because the surgery hadn't touched my right leg. And so they scheduled me a nerve conduction study the next month. So February, March timeframe of 22, I would have been about a year post-op. And so that probably late March of 22, they do this nerve conduction study. And what a nerve conduction study does is it measures the conductivity of your nervous system, right? And so if there's problems there, they can see that. If there's parts of your muscle that aren't getting, signals from your brain to fire and that kind of stuff, they can measure that. And it was a really unnerving experience having the nerve conduction study, because there was two doctors, one who ran the practice and run the practice for years, and another doctor who was like essentially job shadowing him or in her, final steps of finishing up her licensure or whatever. But she was there under him, and they're laughing and joking with the previous patient. You can hear them out in the lobby, and they start out laughing and joking with me, having a good time. And I'm at the time, I'm thinking I'm just getting the nerve conduction study on my calves, like from my knees down, because that's what really was having the problems. At that point in time, I didn't have any muscle atrophy in my legs, my glutes or anything like that. It was just knees down, basically my calves, more pronounced in my left than my right. And so as the nerve conduction study goes along, they get real sober, and they begin to, pay a whole lot more attention, and they're not talking to me. I'm laying on my back, or my stomach, and they're sticking probes and shocking me and stuff. And they're starting to whisper to each other, and they do my calves, and they're like, can we go up your hip? And I was like, yeah, you can go up my hip. They go up my hip, and they're like, can we go up your spine? I was like, yeah, go up my spine. And then they were like, can we do just one of your arms? And I was like, yeah, you can do one of my arms. And so like, that was really tough, because I knew at that point I was not doing well on this nerve conduction study. And, but ALS was not, I didn't know anything about ALS at the time. Like I remember the ice bucket challenge, and I did the ice bucket challenge, and there'd even been a couple people in my life who had ALS, but as far as like really understanding it, no idea, right? I didn't even know ALS was a possibility. But they had asked me a bunch of questions. They asked me questions like, is your speech slurred? Does your tongue feel numb? Does your face ever twitch? Like those types of things. And so we have this, Dad had come with me on this took me up to Pennsylvania, to the the medical center there to get this nerve conduction study. And we're driving back, and it's a quiet drive back. I don't really say anything to him because I don't know what's up. And so that night when I get home, wife and daughter are asleep, I start Googling, like, what are these symptoms they're asking me about?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And so I realized by doing that, like, oh, they think I have ALS. And so then I go down the Google search engine of what is ALS? What does it mean? And, you know, I don't mind to tell you, like, I didn't cry myself to sleep that night, but there were some tears that night. There was some real worry, some real concern, like my career is going to be over if this is true. Like, you know, one of the first stats you see when you look up ALS is like 3 to 5 years is how long people live. 85% of people live for 3 to 5 years with symptoms. Well, at this point, this is like early, this is like 22, right? And I've had symptoms since 19. So I'm going, I'm 3 years into my symptoms. Like, this is bad.
Yeah.
And so there was just a lot I didn't know. Suffice to say, like, Google searches don't teach you everything you need to know, right? Like, they teach you just enough to worry. So, you know, and so we wait on the results to come back and
now, while you're waiting, did you mention to your wife what you Googled?
No, I didn't tell her any of that.
You're just carrying it, just you. You didn't tell anyone.
Right, because there's, like, in my mind, there's no sense to, like, send up red flags to people if that's not it. So, yeah, I'm not telling my family, like, that's what it is, right? I did tell her, like, I did tell her that the nerve conduction study did go pretty bad, but I didn't tell her things like the younger doc handed me a piece of paper and was like, if you were my loved one, I would want you to talk to these neurologists immediately. Like, okay, that's pretty concerning, right?
Yeah,
so I just kind of ate all that stuff. I wasn't going to share that stuff with my family at that point in time. There's no way. So nerve conduction study results come back. They're bad, but they say in there, in that one paragraph, they say, we don't think this is ALS because the symptom progression has been so slow, right? Like, if it was ALS, typically you would expect me to be essentially half dead by then, right? Like, you would expect to see a lot more nerve damage, a lot less capability. And so they didn't see that. So they were like, we don't think this is ALS, but we don't know what it is. It needs more testing. And so I take that back to my folks at Camden, which is where my primary care doc is. And so when she gave me that list of neurologists to go to, she's like, it's going to be 6 or 8 months before you can get into these. Call them like every week, try to get on their call down list. And so I wasn't going to go at that point in time. I was like, okay, this is probably going to be a lot of doctor's appointments. I'm not going to Pennsylvania every time I need to see a doc. And so I took those results. I went to my primary care provider, Kara Holder, and she's excellent. She gave that stuff to her, whoever does the appointments and stuff. And within like 2 weeks, I'm seeing a neurologist to find out what's going on. Interestingly enough, they sent out multiple referrals to neurologists and to get me seen as quick as possible. Well, it just so happened, I got with Dr. Hollinger and his team at Marshall, and they're the only ALS Association certified ALS clinic in the entire state. So not only did they see me the quickest, but the good Lord sent me to the people that most likely have the most expertise in the entire state.
The best. That's great.
Yeah, no, that's not a coincidence. That's not a mistake, right? That's God's providence. And so I go down there. He runs all kinds of blood tests. He runs some testing for some stuff in my family history, which ALS is not in my family history, interestingly enough. And we strike out on all of them. And at that point, I pretty much know, like, okay, this is probably ALS. Still didn't tell my family that, although I did a rehearsal with like my work family. So if you guys were part of that work family and you're seeing this, thank you. I did a rehearsal with my work family and was like, hey, I need to talk to you guys. And I like told them, and essentially got my emotions out at that point, which there was some emotions, which let me be much stronger in the face of telling my family when the time came, because you want to be strong for them. So we now know that this is on the radar. We know that this is a possibility. And when we strike out, we like, okay, this is bad. And so he brings me back in for one more round of testing. It's genetic testing. So they're looking for any kind of genetic mutation associated with ALS. And sure enough, I have what's called the SOD1 mutation, which is commonly associated with ALS. And so based on that and the nerve conduction study, which he had repeated at that point on his own, I was diagnosed with ALS, and that would have been May of 23. So my daughter graduated in May of 23, and then like 2 weeks later, I got the official diagnosis that I had ALS.
So, two questions. Is ALS also known as Lou Gehrig's disease? Is
It
that,
is.
am I
Yes,
pronouncing
ma'am.
that correctly?
Yep.
If not,
Lou Gehrig's disease. Lou Gehrig was a very famous baseball player, and he developed it. It ruined his career. And so ALS for years was known as Lou Gehrig's disease after that.
So, as the listeners may have heard at the beginning, I didn't say exactly what Levi was going to share today. And I did that purposely so he could share it in his way. He was diagnosed with ALS in 23, is what he's talking about. And I did tease Levi when he got on today because he had a Marshall shirt on. I was like, wait a minute. Also, another little secret, Levi is a lumberjack, but we love him anyways. We love him anyways. I'm just kidding. I love my lumberjack friends. Crystal and all of them, they know I do. But when Levi and myself, when we worked together, of course, when the wagon wheel, game was played, we had a good time just kind of ripping each other a little bit. But Levi, I was teasing him about his Marshall shirt, and we love Marshall too. It's just a little joke. And he said, hey, this is where I received my treatment. They've been so good to me and they have kept me alive. I was like, then get me one. I'll wear a shirt too. I'll wear the Marshall shirt too. But he'll cover that, I'm sure. And he already touched on it, how God led him there. This is, I believe, truly the favor of the Lord, like you said, the providence of the Lord that put you with the right medical staff at the right time to provide the best care for you.
Yep.
But I also wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts, your feelings? What is it like when you know that you're going to have to sit down with your wife and daughter and tell them this news? Because now ALS too, look at me having two questions.
That's
is
okay.
it primarily in males only,
No.
or can females have
No,
ALS?
no, it doesn't. It's really not. There's not much differentiation between the sexes. But now I will tell you that service members contract ALS at about twice the rate civilian population does.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the reason I think that is. And the jury is still out on all the reasons, but military service puts a ton of oxidative stress on your body. Well, what does that mean? Well, we all know like coffee has antioxidants, and foods that have antioxidants like blueberries and all that stuff are good for you. Well, what does that mean? It means oxidants cause your body to have inflammation, right? And your body can only handle so much inflammation, and antioxidants help your body handle that. Well, military service does a ton of things to cause essentially oxidative stress in your body or inflammation in your body, whether it's low sleep, because sleep is one of the primary ways your body handles oxidative stress, inflammation, whether it's bad food, right? MREs, nothing but MREs for a month, which is part of what happened during deployment, is not good, right? But we were in a place that didn't have an established kitchen, so we were eating MREs. When we did get an established kitchen, it was just bigger MREs boiled in water instead of, they're just made a different way and in a different quantity. The work you do, the food you eat, the lack of sleep, the physical fitness, right? And on top of all that, you're punishing your body, trying to make the muscles get stronger, So all of those things I think contribute to part of the reasons why service members, and it doesn't matter whether they deployed, not deployed, branch of service is kind of not all that important either. But yeah, service members contract ALS about twice the rate civilian population does. And that's my personal opinion why, although scientifically the jury is still out on that. But in my experience, I think that's why my ALS kicked in when it did, which is 37 is fairly young to start having symptoms. And I think that's part of the reason mine did when it did, because during deployment, I had oxidative stress load on my body that it just couldn't handle. And so that, especially with the SOD1 mutation, that's how ALS functions in my body. My body can't fight inflammation. That's kind of why my face is a little bit puffy all the time and that kind of stuff. So I don't fight inflammation well. So I think I overloaded my body with essentially stressors that caused too much inflammation. And here I am now. I think I probably would have developed it at some point in my life because I have the mutation. But although that's not a guarantee, not everybody who has an SOD1 mutation goes on to have ALS. But so not necessarily, doesn't really discriminate between men and women, but service members do catch it a little more often. Well, a lot more often, double the rate.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is. That's probably important to say a little bit about what ALS is. Maybe some of you probably don't know. I didn't until I was diagnosed with it. So if you don't feel bad. ALS is essentially a degenerative disease where your body slowly loses the ability to control your muscles. For me, that's primarily in my extremities, my arms, my legs. But eventually, absent a miracle from the good Lord, which he's absolutely able to deliver on, I will begin to lose function in other parts of my body, like my face, my tongue, my voice box, and eventually my lungs, right? And that's the mode by which ALS kills people. It stops their lungs from being able to function. My brain can no longer get the signal to my diaphragm and the muscles that run my lungs to tell them to pump. And so that's the mode by which ALS kills its victims, right? If you read, like, it'll say ALS is 100% fatal. I'm not sure I believe that.
Let's not believe. I'm on board with not believing.
We're all going to die, right? But
Yeah,
I don't think I don't believe ALS is 100% fatal. There's people who out there who've lived with it for 20 or 30 years, and so it is what it is. But that's kind of what ALS is. It's a disease that causes you to lose the ability to control your muscles. For me, it started in my extremities. Some people, it starts in their tongue, their voice. So it's not, ALS is not just ALS. There's a ton of different ways it can come about. There's a ton of different ways it can affect the body. But that's kind of in a nutshell what it is.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. And let's do, everyone listening, when you think of Levi and when you watch this, let's just believe God for a long, healthy life for Levi.
Oh, I think that's a definite at this point. But you had asked earlier about telling my wife and my daughter. So we kind of botched the telling of my wife. So what happened is I was waiting on this report to come back from the geneticist, right? So they drew my blood, they sent it off to geneticist, and I'm waiting on this report. And at this point, I'm hanging on like every medical report that comes in, right? And so as soon as that medical report's available, I go try to find it on my electronic record stuff. It's locked down. It has to be released by my provider. I can't even access it. And so
I didn't even know that was an option on the my charts or the electronic medical records. Yeah, there are some you cannot get.
When it comes to major diagnosis, they're reluctant to just let somebody find that out on their own because they don't know what kind of support they have and that kind of stuff. So it's locked down, which I immediately take as a bad sign because this was my second run of genetic reports. My last one wasn't locked down. So I immediately request it to be released by my provider. And about 5 minutes later, I'm driving, right? I'm driving. And I requested the release while I was driving. I'm sorry if I was tailgating or swerving or something. But my doc calls me like 5 minutes later from his personal cell phone. And I'm like, And so I pull over and he and I talk and he tells me, yes, that he believes I have ALS, that there's enough diagnosis, yada, yada, yada. And that there's enough there for diagnosis. And we kind of already talked about what that could mean by that point because we thought we knew. After the first round of testing, genetic and metabolic testing and all that stuff came back, we were pretty much everything was eliminated but like serious stuff. And so we had already talked a little bit about what that means. And so he kind of went through some of that again and he said, I'll release your report. Well, at this time, Crystal was working. She was working at what was then Burke's, now Beals in Summersville. And she has access to my email. That's one of the things of military service, right?
Gosh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So she has access to my email because when I was gone for deployment, and even when I was back from deployment, I was still gone 1 or 2 weeks a month for military service. We traveled the country training other National Guard units. So I was gone a lot. So all the accounts that need bills paid and that are attached to my account and all that stuff, it's just easier. She has access to it. So she's had access to my email since probably right before deployment, maybe a little bit earlier or whatever. And so the email comes in and she looks at it while she's at work. And so she calls me and she's at work and she says, what does this mean? And I didn't lie to her. I told her. And she lost it at work, right? As you would, right? Imagine finding out, so a little background about Crystal and I. We started dating in 1999 as seniors in high school. And we've been together ever since, right? So it's a tough thing to hear. And so there's plenty of emotions for her. And like, she'll tell you, she didn't even know how she got home that day, right? She drove home. She comes in the front door and she can't even face me. Our front door has like a little half wall there, like a little 2-foot wall right as you come in, and she can't turn the corner. And so she turns the corner. We both break down at that point. And Abigail's away at college, so we got to kind of isolate her from some of the rawness of it, which was good.
Good. Yeah.
But we did have to talk to Abigail about it, and it was hard for her to hear. And not only did she have to hear that, hey, Dad's got ALS, but she also had to hear the mutation I have. It's a dominant gene mutation, so there's a 50% chance I gave her this mutation. If it's a recessive trait, it's 25%, which is much better. And so she had to hear all of that, right? And that's tough. She's about 18 at the time, 17 or 18, but she's already in school. Or no, this was summer, so she had just graduated, so she must have been at work too, but she wasn't home, so we got to isolate her from some of the rawness of it. But we did have to tell her, and that's hard to do, right? I mean, at the time, we're still thinking 3 to 5 years is my best range, right?
Yeah.
80. So I think I told you 85% die within 3 to 5 years. You got another 10% that live to 10 years, and then you got another 5% that live to around 20 years. And so, at the time, we're still thinking, my goodness, 3 to 5 years, and I'm more than 3 years into my symptom progression at this point. And so it's tough. And so, yeah, there was a lot of emotion around that. I was thankful, again, that I had been able to kind of rehearse what I was going to say with some other folks outside my home. And then, it's not something you want to ever have to do, but we did it. And at the time, it was hard to reflect on all the stuff that was happening. So I have to tell my work, right? And as I tell my work, the Army, you can't serve in the Army and have ALS. You will be discharged. And so as soon as I've talked to them, they start the medical discharge process, which is a huge process because the Army is very meticulous about whether this person really should be kicked out or not. But we knew that was going to happen. And so we went down that road. And I had a good friend, Clint Tompkins, if you're listening, thank you. I had a great commander. Sir, if you're listening, thank you. My friend went to the boss and was like, hey, boss, he probably needs sat down. He probably needs to come, not because at the time I was running the biggest branch in the building. I had, the majority of the employees there's about 109 of us that work there. I had more under my supervision than any other branch at this full-time gig I had in St. Albans. And, I'm driving from Nicholas County to St. Albans every day. I'm working like 60 hours a week. All that stuff's really bad for you. I'm still traveling. I'm still going, and when we travel, we're on our feet all day, every day. And so my buddy, thank you, went to him, was like, hey, we probably need to set him down. This is not good. And so they bring me in, and about November. So I got diagnosed in May of 23. I tried to do what I could do because that was my goal. I want to do my regular job to the best of my ability for as long as I can, because at this point, I don't want out. I want as much time in the military as I can get. I had no idea what my financial situation was going to be once I'm out of the military. So I'm trying to hold it down and be as good as I can be, but it's ruining me, right? I come home, fatigue is one of the biggest symptoms of ALS. I come home and hit the recliner and don't want to get up, right? Which is not me.
Right.
And so in November of 23, they set me down. They're like, you're going to work from home. If you still want to travel on this other program we have that's less demanding, you can do that. And I was like, no, if you guys are going to let me work from home, I probably shouldn't even travel. I'm becoming more and more of a full-time patient. So they let me do that. Interestingly enough, that very same month, the church that I'm a member of, First Baptist Church of Craigsville, which is where I got saved, as a result of VBS back when I was a little kid. It's where I was ordained in 2014. They find themselves in need of a pastor, exact same month. And so in November of 23, not only did I start working from home, but I also started being the interim pastor at First Baptist Church of Craigsville. And so the next year goes along, and we're working this process of what's it going to look like when I'm out? How does all that work? What are the steps? And that tells you how involved the process is. I started the process May of 23, and I finally fully retired in February of this year. So it's a process. Lots of medical appointments. They reconfirmed all the stuff my civilian docs had already done. Long process. But at that whole time, from November till I retired, I'm allowed to work from home. My workload is way down. I mean, I'm on my computer every day. I'm responsive to emails every day, but I'm basically doing what they need me to do and maintaining my health. And there's no doubt in my mind that my symptom progression would have been much quicker during that time had my stubborn mind been able to get what it wanted, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that myself, just knowing you. Like, Levi is very physically active. I mean, he takes care of himself, he takes care of his body physically. And for you to have to accept, like, I've got to slow down. It's time to listen to my body and slow down.
Mhm.
What was that like for
It's
you?
tough, right?
Yeah,
And that's still probably one of the tougher parts of it.
yeah,
Is I still don't want I don't want to slow down as much as I need to probably.
yeah,
Um, and so this is so it's tough. But it was
yeah,
really tough early on, right? It was tough
yeah,
because one, you place a ton of value in your professional life if you're a guy,
yeah,
for the most part. Most,
yeah.
and I know women do too, but to a lesser extent. But for men, your ability to provide is like what determines your worth in the world, right?
Exactly. Yes, yes,
To worldly standards, that's what it is. Like if you can
yeah,
provide, that's good. If you can't, then we're looking down on you. And
yeah,
I got a lot of shade from a lot of people in the military, like, "Oh, this guy's not physically fit. He's not working hard enough." Like, not from my commanders. They were great,
yeah, yeah,
but that's
yeah,
the mentality in the Army, right? And
yes, yeah,
at that point in time, I didn't have anything to say. Like, I couldn't say I'm diagnosed with ALS because I didn't know, and so some of that's seeping in, right? And I'm telling
yeah,
myself that, and I'm trying to work harder, but the more I worked, the harder I worked, the more it hurt my body, right? Especially with
yeah,
running, because
yeah,
the muscles aren't capturing my weight like they're supposed to, and it's all just hammering my joints. And
yeah,
so, so it was very tough. That was probably one of the hardest parts, besides the emotion, besides the emotions of telling your family and facing like
sure,
your own mortality. That was one of the hardest parts. Is like, man, this thing that I've wrapped so much time up in and placed so much of my own self worth in is gone now, right?
yeah.
So it was very tough.
How did your relationship with Christ come into play there? What did you do to combat some of those thoughts?
Yeah. So I mean, it does make you refocus, right?
Yes,
Um, I had let I had wrapped my own head and life around the idea of the world, right? Which is if you
yes,
can provide, you're a man. If you can't, you're not.
yes,
But if you go back to Jesus talking about paying taxes, it's a weird thing to think about. But they bring him a denarius with Caesar's image on it and say, "Hey, should we pay taxes or not?" Was a big controversy that day, right? Because the Jews didn't like being ruled by Rome. And so he says, "Well, whose image is on that coin?" And they say to him, "Well, it's Caesar's." And he says, "Well, give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God." Well, what's God? Well, what's God stamped his image on? He stamped his image on us, right?
yes,
And
yes, yes.
in Genesis, it says he created us in his image.
His
We
image.
are stamped in his image. And so that's what I had to come to realization. That's what gives us worth, is that he stamped his image on us, right? Just like Caesar's stamp on the coin gave the coin worth. It's not just metal anymore. Well, I'm not just my ability to provide, but it took me a while to wrap my head around that, right? Like,
Sure.
and and that's something I've always known, like rationally, but sometimes the head and heart don't agree, and
Yeah.
so it took a while to get there, and it really helped that as the process went along, it became very apparent that I was I was going to be okay financially. My family was going to be okay financially. Like I don't want to go too much into financials, but
Sure. Yeah.
essentially, I'm medically retired, and between the VA benefits, my medical retirement, disability, all that stuff, I'm at like 85% of what I was making when I was working full time. So that's
Yeah.
very doable. It's very good. And plus,
Yes.
when I entered pastored for the church, I was in a financial position because of the way God had arranged my work, right? You're working from home, but you're still getting paid full time. I didn't have to charge the church anything to
Yeah.
be their interim pastor, right? So,
Yeah.
like, his provision became more and more clear as the process went along. And that really helped alleviate some of that pressure I had put on myself to provide, right?
Yes.
Um, so, and at this point in time, Crystal has already quit work, right?
Yeah.
After I got diagnosed, she's like, "Well, if you're going to be home all the time, I'm going to be home all the time," because we legit then didn't know how much time I have left, and technically we don't know how much time I have left now, but we
Right.
understand it's much more time than we thought we had initially.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So all of that was very tough, right? The world, we let the world in more than we realize sometimes in it, but that's something that I had to essentially get my head and heart wrapped around, not just my head.
Sure.
So
Yeah. 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 That's very true, and it's very human. I mean, any of us are
Mhm.
like that. Chris and I, similar, not exactly the same situation. he can no longer work. Well, that took a huge mental toll on him because
Hmm.
you're right. I mean, the standards are the men provide, and everyone has an opinion about it. And we have to just be very intentional about blocking out, not listening to, not reading, not seeing on social media, and staying focused on who we are in Christ. He is
That's
our
right.
provider. His opinion of us is what matters, not everyone else. But I do very much admire your strength in the way that sounds like you've led your family through this. And I'm with Crystal. I would have quit too. I would have been right. Honestly, I mean, probably Chris would have to say, "Could you give me some space?" Like, you got to back up. So I'm with her. If you were going to be home, I would have too. So I completely understand that
Yeah.
decision. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So now, so you're home, you retired, which I think is pretty awesome that everything went through, you retired, and they found a pastor for the
Yes.
church, First Baptist Church of Craigsville, correct?
Absolutely. So it's really interesting. Month for month,
Yeah.
I started working from home in November. That's the very same month we needed an inner pastor. My retirement was completed in February, which is the exact same month that we found, or that not that we found him earlier, but that's the exact same month that our full time pastor came.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
That's
so
awesome.
it's God's stamp is on it, right? His
Mhm.
provision is on it. His timing is evident. And so and I still am very active in the church. I teach Sunday
Oh,
school. I'm essentially functioning in like an associate pastor role. I still have one service on Sundays that I teach. We call it a spiritual support group. It's not really like it's a Bible study, but
sure.
it's a Bible study with lots of input from folks. It's about real world issues. That's actually part of what helped drive home. We did like a couple month-long study on self-worth and where does our self-worth really come from.
Right.
And I'm up
Yeah.
there teaching it, but at the same time, it's speaking to me, right? Like,
Sure.
um,
Yeah.
and right
Yeah.
now we're doing trials in life. So, and then the next one's going to be grief. And so we're working through these issues of like real world issues and how the Bible applies to them and how you can navigate them in light of what the word says. And so,
Yeah.
so it's a blessing to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so that's kind of what my life consists of now. Obviously, I have my family, spending time with them,
Yeah.
and then I have the duties that I have at church, and then I have like my duties as a patient. And
Yes.
so it's really time consuming to have a terminal illness. I mean, I go to physical therapy twice a week. I get a shot in my spine once a month that usually puts me down for like a day or two.
Yeah.
I'm due for that this week. Thursday this week, I go to Huntington and have that shot. Then there's I have to go to the eye doctor about every 60 days because the shot in my spine has the potential to affect my vision. So there's a lot to manage as
Oh,
far as the disease, but there's also a lot of joy in spending more time with my family and being able to be more involved
yes.
at the church and all those things. So
Yeah.
it becomes in these situations a matter of what do you want to focus on, right? Do I want to focus on the negatives or do I want to focus on the positive, right? And so
Yeah.
you you ha- you have to make the choice. And I would love to tell people out there it's a one time choice, and you once you make that choice once you're done. But it's a daily choice, right? You have to decide every day what it
And
is you're going to
probably,
focus on.
I would guess there are times that you choose it multiple times a day, like in a day
Oh yeah,
span.
yeah,
Hey, I'm going to magnify this. I'm going to,
yeah.
this is what I'm choosing.
Times I choose to throw pity parties for myself. Like if I'm
Yeah.
trying to do something around the house and it's harder than I think it should be, or maybe I have to do it in like 3 or 4 different spurts or across a couple of days because I'm just too tired or my legs aren't holding me at this point or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's times I throw pity parties for myself. I would love to tell you I'm the master of all of this, but I'm not.
Yeah.
It's a it, but the overarching is joy, right? It's not,
That's right.
and the longer I am removed from diagnosis and the ruination of my career, essentially, the easier it becomes to focus on those joyful things
Yeah.
than the down things. And like, um, physical therapy is a blast. I go to Mountaineer Physical Therapy in Summersville. I love those
Oh,
people
yeah.
there. They've been so good
Yeah.
to me.
Great.
I've been to physical therapy in like 4 different cities in this state, Charleston, St. Albans, 2 different places, Nitro, and it there is where I need to be, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so it is. It's God has aligned the right providers
Yes,
at the
he has.
right time, and so the overarching thing is joy. But yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes I still throw pity parties for myself. Sometimes I still have bad days. Not every day's the same.
Right.
If I eat bad or if I don't get enough sleep or whatever, I'm toast for a day.
Yeah.
I just feel like garbage. But as long as I'm on my P's and Q's and I take a ton of medicine, there's only a couple medicines out there approved for ALS, but I take a ton of supplements that try to keep my muscles healthy, try to keep me,
Hmm.
energy level up, all that stuff. Most
Yeah.
of those are like natural supplements, but it's still a struggle, and it's gonna
Yeah.
be. But there's absolutely joy and purpose in the struggle as well.
Yes, there is. That's exactly right. Yes. I'm so glad you said that. Does it make you just value life more, like the important things of life instead of the rushing and the just the nonsense things sometimes we get caught up in?
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. I say, hey, the best thing about having ALS is you don't have to live life in a hurry anymore, right?
Yeah.
And it's true to a large extent. It's true. Like this morning, I spent a solid hour just drinking coffee and working a puzzle at a local coffee shop with my dad. Like
That's
when
great.
I would have never been able to do that. Like I
No.
probably wouldn't even be
Yeah.
home right now if I was still doing my full time stuff, right?
Right.
So it absolutely has given me time. I have, you know, I've spent more time with my wife and daughter since diagnosis than I probably did
Yeah.
at any point in my adult life,
Hmm.
because I've been so oriented for so long. And so, I hate how I've backed into this early retirement, but early retirement's not a bad gig.
Exactly.
Um,
It has its perks. Yeah.
yeah, it really does. It really does.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Hmm.
I love how you share the story. I love that we see God's just his faithfulness through all of it. I mean, from the
Hmm.
diagnosis to the where he led you for treatment, even now, and your finances. Just you can just see his goodness through all of it. I mean, I love it. It's awesome.
There's absolute like so in the time that I was interim pastor, we had I think we had 5 baptisms. Like there's
Yeah,
gonna be people in heaven partly as a result. God could have used any means to save them. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
I had a hand in people going to heaven that I would have never had I not had the disease. So, like in
Yeah,
retrospect, in all reality, I wouldn't change it. I know
yeah,
that's crazy to say, but I'm extremely blessed. Like I should probably talk a little bit about my own prognosis and my own life expectancy,
yeah,
to kind of give
yeah. Please
people
do.
a frame of reference here. But I'm very blessed. Most people, as you know, who have had symptoms as long as I have already passed, have already succumbed to the disease. I'm still ambulatory. I walk. I do have braces that I wear. I sometimes use a walking stick, especially if I'm on uneven ground or gravel or snow or ice, stuff like that. I do have falls. I trip and fall more often than most people. But my like if I went and asked my neurologist today, like, hey doc, what is my life expectancy? He would say we don't know. I'll give you a couple reasons why he would say we don't know. One is the SOD1 mutation is exceedingly rare. There's about 500 of us in the databases. So when you get genetically
Oh,
tested, you can check the little box and be like, yes, you can scrub my personal information, but put my results into the database. There's about 500 of us. Of those 500, there's me and one other person we know of that has the specific mutation to that gene that I have. So a gene can mutate multiple ways. And the way that my gene is mutated, the SOD1 gene, is known in one other case. And so we don't know who that person is. We don't know how their disease
oh,
progressed.
yeah.
But the disease progression in myself has been very, very slow.
Good.
Um, and the medicine that I get put in my spine every month is tofersen. It is the only approved treatment specifically for uh, for a genetic link to ALS. It has the potential to keep ALS out of my voice box, out of my tongue, out of my lungs indefinitely. Now we don't
Yeah,
know if it's going to do that because it hasn't been out for very long.
yeah,
It came out, it was approved and used after I was diagnosed. So they have a pretty small frame of reference, but potentially it could keep it out of it's called the upper bulbar nervous system. It could keep it out of that part of my body indefinitely, which if it does, that means I don't die from this.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and there's other genetic treatments under approval. I have a friend who has ALS. He's on a trial, a medical trial for a different genetic link to ALS, but same kind of principle. He gets a shot in his spine once a month. Um, and so, prognosis wise, we really don't know how long I had to live. What we do know is that the disease is still progressing slowly in my extremities, but it may not ever touch my lungs, my voice, my tongue, that kind of stuff. If you were to watch me and observe me closely, you can't do that online, but you can see muscle twitches in my body. And those fasciculations, I always pronounce that wrong, but those fasciculations are part of the disease. That's part of what happens when essentially that piece of my muscle is dying and not getting messages from my brain like it should. I don't have any of those in my face. I don't have any of those in any part of my body that would suggest it's affecting that most important part, which is the upper bulbar nervous system. So, prognosis wise, I may be here till I die an old man as things stand now, right? But there's constantly research on different medicines. There's medicines out there that are working toward reconnecting muscles, essentially healing synapses. SPG 302 is one of them. It's under trials in Australia and America both. And that one in animals has shown the ability to reconnect and reestablish functionality that's been lost, which there's no medicine out there for ALS right now that can do that. So, there's a lot to be hopeful for. And for me, I'm extremely blessed that my disease progresses as slowly as it has. So
is there anything that you haven't talked about, that we haven't touched on, that you just want to share and make sure that we say today?
No, I mean, that's, there's a lot of funny stories I could tell. But as far as like the disease and how it's affected me, that's kind of the big ticket items. We've hit the mountaintops. It just goes back to what you want to focus on,
Absolutely.
and so choose
tell
accordingly.
me, after you take a little sip of coffee, I want you to tell me about your church, if you know the times of their services.
Absolutely.
I have a dear friend that goes over there, Betty Lowe. If you know Betty, you love her. You love her. Tell us about, I don't know if the group that you were talking about is open to the public. If so, you can share that with us. Tell us anything you want to about your church. And
we're First Baptist Church of Craigsville. We're on Boone Hill. It's right up the road from where the makeshift high school is in the old Beaver Grade School building. We are Southern Baptist, Bible-believing church. We teach the whole gospel. Our pastor is Nick Taroni. He's not from around here, but man, does he fit in. He does an excellent job. If you want to check us out, you can see us on Facebook. We broadcast every Sunday morning service. We have Sunday school classes starting at 10, worship service at 11 on Sundays. We have a class for you, regardless of your age. Come on over. At 3 o'clock, we do the spiritual support group. Like I said, right now we're focusing on trials, and we'll be focusing on grief next. It is open to the public. It's a very small group setting. I imagine if the group grows too big, we'll split it up to kind of maintain that small group, because it facilitates discussion and comfort in sharing. Hey, this is what's impacting me right now, and this is how I see what we're studying, applying to it. And then Wednesday nights at 6:30. We call them workshop Wednesdays. It's it's a Bible study, but it's a Bible study that Nick does that is very focused on application, right? It's not just like, here's an academic study about what the Bible says about this specific topic. It's like, here's what the Bible says, and here is like detailed how you apply this to your life. It's really, really good. And that's our primary services. But check us out on Facebook. Come join us. We're a little crazy, but we welcome everybody, and we'll just love on you. Betty, as you know, Betty just lost her mom, and we hate that for her, but we appreciate the opportunity to kind of wrap her in love as a church family, and we look forward to having her back with us. It's very loving church. So if you're going through some things and you feel like you're going through it alone, come see us, right? Come find me, big bald head, big ugly beard. You can't miss me. We'll talk through whatever you got going on. Nick will talk through with you, and it'll all be very biblically accurate and applied. It's not just reading and understanding; it's application.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. So, if you're looking for a church, and often I see people on Facebook in that area looking for a church, one that their kids are welcome in. This one is one that your children will be welcome in. They've had some great vacation Bible schools. Yeah, just try. And if you're a veteran or active military service man or woman. Levi, I confessed to him yesterday, I don't know all the lingo that I should know, so he'll correct anything that I mess up. But if you have questions about his process with the military, about anything with retirement, he's given me the go ahead, like he would be glad to talk to you. If you want to reach out to me, or he is on Facebook as well, you can do so. And I want to add, Levi is going to feel, I'm going to preface this. He's going to feel very uncomfortable with what I'm about to say next. He will not like this, and he'll say, no, 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 no. Okay, that would be fine. He can do that. So for my birthday every year, now my birthday is not until August the 25th. And contrary to what my daughter said the other day, I will only be 49. I will not be 50 yet. It's okay if I am going to be 50, but I will only be 49. And every year for my birthday, the birthday party I like to throw is I like to get online and gather donations for a family or for a organization, just something to bless their socks off with monetary donations. They can use it as they want to. It can be for travel expenses. Maybe sometimes you have to stay all night. I don't care. Sometimes they go on vacation with it, get a steak dinner. It doesn't matter. Just in honor of my birthday, I want to throw a party that benefits someone else. And so I'm starting that party now, and it's really, really early. Yes, I know we're in May, but Levi and his family, they're going to be the birthday guests this year. So you'll see me all over Facebook. I know you do it. I don't listen. Don't even look at him, folks, or listen to him because he's going to get it. That's going to be who I'm throwing the party for this year. So in the show notes, and the description in the show notes will be my PayPal and my Venmo. I'm not cool. I do not have Cash App. That's what all my kids have. I don't want one more thing to transfer money. I have PayPal and Venmo and Facebook Pay. If you want to go ahead and make a contribution for my birthday on behalf of Levi and his family, you can do so, and then I get it right to them. Or you can wait till closer to my birthday, because I'll start the birthday party the middle of June. But they will be the recipients this year of that. And yeah, I just appreciate you so much sharing this. I was very attentive and on the edge of my seat during the whole thing. I told everyone you're a great speaker. You told the entire story so well and glorified God, as I knew you would, through the entire thing. And I'm believing for long, healthy life, that the benefits of the medication will work in your body and you will be around for a long time, because you still have to be a papaw. There's just a lot of things you still have to do, and you're going to do it. So I want to encourage the listeners to always pray for Levi and his family. And again, if you want to connect with him, you can either find him on Facebook, or you can contact me, and I'll, with his permission,
Yeah.
get you to him.
Yeah, that's fine. And we will take all the prayers we can get. That,
Yeah.
please and thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm starting now, so I want to do a really big birthday celebration for them. Last year, we did it for my friend JD, who was also had been diagnosed with ALS, and JD went on to heaven and has left a beautiful legacy with his family. The year before that, I think we did it for a couple cancer patients who are both still doing very well in remission. They're doing a great job. So I want to top all that we have given in the past to Levi and his family, because I really can't think of a more deserving group than the Braggs, even though they're lumberjacks, right? See, that's what the love of God will do for you. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, listen. If Webster County wins their sectional ball game today, it's going to be the Lumberjacks versus the Highlanders yet again. So
How fun is it?
mhm.
I forgot to. Levi is he was a wrestler, right? And you used to umpire baseball games. I don't know if you still do or not.
No, so I
Okay.
unfortunately I wouldn't be able to do those things anymore physically,
Yeah.
but yeah, I refereed softball, wrestling,
Yeah.
wrestled in high school. Never lost to a kid from Webster County. It was great.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No,
That's a
I
blast.
knew. I mean, I knew all those guys on the ritual on the Webster County wrestling team. Loved them.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
we saw each other an awful lot, so it was good
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. We love it.
And
And
my
I
mom's from
remember,
Webster County. She's from Cowan Bottom, so
yeah. Oh, is she really?
yeah, she grew up right up the road from where Betty lived.
I didn't know that.
She's known her since she was a kid.
That's a ton of fun. I did not know that.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I always flash back to 2019 when our ball team won the state championship. Richwood and Nicholas County, they loved on us and supported us, and it was just so much fun how all the counties came together, and it was just a good time. And we like to have a good time joking with each other, but
That's
it's
right.
all in fun. But the last two questions for you today, and then I will let you go.
Okay.
What do you know about God now that you didn't know before your diagnosis? And what do you know about yourself now that you did not know before your diagnosis?
Yeah, those are two really good questions, right? That's probably why you ask them over and over. I think for the first one, I would just say daily bread, right? The idea that I've got to come to Him daily for what I need. Like I wasn't so much doing that when things were good and I was essentially on top of the mountain, right? Like I'm just kind of doing my daily thing on my own power and like providing for the family and all that. But in a real sense, I've learned to come to Him each and every day for what I need that day. And so that's probably one of the biggest things. As far as myself, I've learned a lot. One, I was, a little prideful. I've had to face that. I was a little prideful in my ability to provide in my military career. I valued my career too much. I put too much emphasis on it. Like, and I always kind of looked at my career as like part of what I did for my family, right? I'm serving my career so hard because I'm supporting my family in it. But really things were a little out of balance for me. And so not so much in the time application. That was what it was. That's what I had to do to get the work done. But as far as like internally, what I told myself about who I was based on my employment was wrong. So yes, I spent a lot of time doing it. And that's just part of the gig, but you don't have to internalize it the way I did. I placed way too much value I evaluated myself too much based on my career. And I've had to learn to do different. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people could probably relate to you in that aspect for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time today and your willingness to share. We
yes,
will
ma'am.
be,
Thank you for the opportunity.
yeah, I was just so excited. I hate the circumstances where we saw each other again and it dawned on me, Levi needs to be on here. But I'm just really happy that everything fell into place. And please tell Crystal and your daughter we said hello. And the turtle. I mean, I'm fascinated by the turtle. That's a long turtle life right there. But thank you. You're welcome here anytime as things continue to progress for the good and you want to share. You always have an open place to do it. And yeah, so folks, get ready between now and August. Get your wallets ready, save up that money, and we're going to load Levi and Crystal and his family up in August. And he's shaking his head. Yes, thank you for that. So he'll receive it well. And yeah, I'll let you go for the day, but thank you
Okay.
so much.
No,
Appreciate you
thank
very
you.
much.
God bless.
Yes, same.